on now. Come on. There we go. We got off to a little bit of a late start tonight. That's my fault. It's almost always my fault.
It's always your fault.
Yep, you're going to have to stay close to your mic, Schwaber. You're just going to have to do that. You are listening to the Sports Porch Philadelphia. We are now live right this very instant all over the world on Facebook, LinkedIn, X, YouTube. And of course, we drop this podcast right after the show, the Sports Porch Philadelphia. And you can catch us on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere you get your friggin' podcasts. And Schwab, if they want to visit us online, where do they go? You tell them.
They go to www.theporchislive.com. Click on the Philadelphia tab, the only tab that matters.
There you go.
Yes.
There you go. So thanks for being here. Drop a comment. We're glad you're with us.
Thank you for being here, Chris.
Oh, you're I know. I had to pick up my daughter at work, and there's always delays. Kids are just a delay.
Sure. Yeah.
Maybe
poor timing on the parent.
No, I don't set the work schedule, buddy. All right, listen, we had a quiet week. The Eagles were on a bye, of course, which means they couldn't lose. But it does seem lately that they can't lose anyway. But we got a big game coming up, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But what I want to do is let's get the garbage out of the way right now. Why don't we do that? Let's talk about the Flyers. They're treading water. They're treading water, which is better than we thought, right?
I don't know why.
We're moving on.
Well, I mean, look, I mean, to be honest, I mean, they're 7-7-1, which is actually good for a team that is not good.
Right.
They did suffer the first loss to that winless San Jose Sharks team. That was like 10-1. But then, you could see that coming, couldn't you? They got to win a game at some point. So why not win it against the Flyers? And then, of course, that team won the very next game as well. So they've now got 2 wins on the year. But then, the Flyers came back and they won 2 games on the road, on the West Coast. So kudos to them for doing that. 7-1, look, you're not out of it. I think there's such a log jam. Like right now, it's like the top, I think 8 teams from each conference, make it. And like the 8th seed right now has 16 points. And, the Flyers with like 7 other teams probably have 15 points. So, they're hanging around the playoff line. I don't expect them to be there at the end, but, for the time being, they're there.
Okay. Sixers, they lost the first game and they haven't lost since. 8-1, best record in the East, best record in the NBA. I know it's early in the season. Maxey had 50 the other night. What are you thinking now? I mean, they made the coaching change. Harden is gone. Maxey's allowed to play now. I mean, they're looking pretty good.
They are looking pretty good. Now, they did have one really unfortunate thing happen over the weekend. This player that I was, really excited about, Kelly Oubre, who was that wing player, got hit by a car.
Oh, God.
Walking across the street in Philadelphia. Hit and run, actually. So
that's terrible.
The good news is that it looks like he's going to be okay. He's got a broken rib and some bumps and bruises, but he may only be but he may only be out like, 2 to 4 weeks. So it's not terrible. It could have been a lot worse. Thankfully he's healthy and okay. Could have been a
Right.
lot worse being hit by a car. Um,
Right.
but it's crazy. I mean, like, how's
Yeah.
that happen? But besides that,
Uh, uh, I,
um, the big news is that they've won their last 8. They've got the best record in the NBA. We'll get back to Pat, in a minute when things are applicable. Um, and,
well, at least look,
and
he missed
mm,
last week, and we were wondering whether or not maybe he was alive. So now we know for
that's
sure.
true. That's true.
Yeah.
Um, and, the big news too was that they beat Boston in this stretch. So the Sixers are 8-1. Boston is 7-2. That's because
Right.
the Sixers beat Boston, which is
That's
very
good to
nice.
see. Right.
And really, the story of this season thus far, besides there being a new coaching staff and a new philosophy of basketball, which is basically moving the ball and playing at a faster pace, which you couldn't do with James Harden,
Right.
is just how Tyrese Maxey, um, seemingly every year just keeps getting better and better. I
Yeah.
mean, there was a lot of talk about Maxey, is really just kind of like a shooting guard. And we're spending the off season thinking, oh, we need to find ourselves a point guard.
Right.
And it just so happens that he's actually pretty good at being a point guard when you don't have James Harden around.
Yeah. He's
He's
hanging 50. So
well,
it's
but that's the point guard is really judged based on assists, right?
true. Yeah.
So, right now, Maxey is ninth in the league in scoring at 28.6 points a game, and he's 10th in the league in assists at 7.2 per game. So he's getting other people involved and scoring, which
Right.
is really, really good. Now you also have Embiid second in scoring right now. He is at 32.4 points per game. He's just point 0.2 behind Luka Doncic, who's at 32.6 points per game. You also have Embiid is seventh in rebounding at 11.7 per game. And you have Maxey is sixth in 3-point shooting, hitting 3.5 per game. And by the way, in that 50-point game, he hit 7 of 11.
Yeah. Not too bad.
So
Not
pretty
too
good.
bad. Yeah.
So pretty good. The other thing is, I think just with James Harden being away, there's just kind of like a sense of relief on the team, and they've gotten some pretty good young players who can fill in and play roles. Like Nick Batum, kind of most importantly, out of that trade, and Robert Covington. So we've gotten some good some good role players out of that trade, plus a couple first round picks to help reinforce down the road or help make a trade. And the team just feels like there's a weight lift off of their shoulders, and they're just playing and they're having fun.
Yeah.
So, hey, what can you say? I mean, good start to the season. And, really, I wasn't anticipating being very interested in the Sixers season until they got rid of James Harden. And
Right.
so he's gone now and they're playing really well. And I'm interested.
Yeah. Yeah. And we always say this, when it is this early in any season, especially, you're talking NBA, baseball, hockey, 80 plus games. But this is where things come, they come full circle when you get down near the end of the season, being 7 games over 500 this early, it's going to mean something. That's the point. Like, you can't dismiss this. There's a definite change in the way the Sixers are playing, the way they're being coached, the way they're approaching the game. And fingers crossed that
Yeah,
we get to the end of this year without any major injuries. And we're not talking about the same things we've talked about the last couple years, the
right.
Celtics.
And that's the thing. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, it's a long way to go.
Right.
But at the same time, I mean, it's an 82 game season and they played 9 games, so that's roughly 1/8 of the season,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Point
So,
125 for you.
right.
digital guys. Let's get to Pat's comment here because if we don't, he'll feel slighted. The Flyers are fine. Let's just get to Reese Hopkins. He's got a Monday Night Football game. Of course, Pat on track is a Bills fan and a Phillies fan. There's been some talk out here in the western side of the state about Reese Hoskins and a certain floundering Major League Baseball team.
It's interesting. I haven't heard anything of the sort. I've
Well,
heard that he's looking like a good fit with the Chicago Cubs.
right. Well, and of course he would because they'll pay him the money and they've got a lineup around him. But
Right.
it's not necessarily from management out here. It's more from, Pirates, the Pirates beat writers and everything. They're saying, put a guy like Reese Hopkins because the Pirates out here they need a first baseman. They need everything really, but so they're talking. So what are your thoughts on Reese Hoskins and the Phillies at this point?
Well, he's definitely not back. They've informed him.
Okay.
They've informed him he's not coming back because Bryce Harper's going to become their full everyday first baseman.
Yeah. So there you go. There you go, Pat, on track. Bye to Reese. Yep.
Yeah. You can't trade him. He's a free agent, Pat. But you have a mind of your own. But no, I mean, look,
you can think that all you want, Pat.
I love Reese Hoskins, and for a period of time, he was my favorite player on the Phillies. But there's one fundamental flaw with Reese Hoskins, and that is that he can't field at all. Like he's a really bad fielder. Like,
right.
He's the kind of guy like, when like somebody throws a ball that's like right into the first baseman's mitt and he just like drops it.
Yeah.
It's not like he can't get a pick out of the dirt. He can't catch the ball when it's in his glove.
Yeah, well, that's a problem. I mean,
so it's a problem. I mean, so much of look, now, of course, he can play a little bit. He's in the major leagues, right?
Right.
In terms of the field, and he'll make some nice plays every now and then.
Schwaber, let's unpack a little bit there. He can play a little bit. I mean, he's in the major leagues.
Right.
I mean, that means he's probably better than me or you.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. Not as good as Pat, maybe. But
no, Pat's on another level.
Right.
Right.
But what I'm saying is, not this year, but the year before, during the Phillies playoff run, leading up to the World Series, they lost like 3 games on the way to the World Series, only 2 games that they lose. And he was pretty much responsible for both losses with errors in the field.
Yeah.
But he's a streaky hitter. He can hit home runs. I would say that like
he's no Carlos Santana.
Oh no. I mean, he's way better. I mean, the thing that's kind of funny about Hoskins is that when Hoskins first came up, he was the best player on the Phillies. Probably for, I don't know, maybe 2-3 years until they got Bryce Harper.
Yes, Pat, I did.
And now you look at Reese Hoskins, and he's probably like if he were still on the team, maybe like the 7th best player in the Phillies.
Gotcha.
So now, so what happened? Like, if let's say he were to go to the Pirates, right? He would instantly be the best player on the Pirates.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
But at the same time, there's so much that goes into things. I mean, there's nobody to protect him.
Well, they got Ryan Reynolds. I mean,
right. There's no one to protect him.
Yeah.
So they're going to throw the outside crap at him that he tends to chase a lot. The other thing about him is he's very much a streak hitter. So, he hits like, 10 home runs in a month, and then he goes like 0 for 45.
Right.
So, the point is there's no purpose for him on the Pirates because they're not really trying to win.
That's right.
I'm sure if he's going to sign, like, unless the Pirates would pay like $50 million more than another team, he'd never go there. I imagine he'll go somewhere like Chicago
That's a
or
total pipe dream out here. We
yeah,
we we understand
yeah,
that. It
yeah.
was just it's one of those things where, and the Pirates, of course, they're the fans and the media in Pittsburgh is all like, well, get this guy. They have no concept of what building a good team is because we haven't built a good team in years. So, okay, Reese Hoskins obviously moving on, but it's not like the guy that's replacing him at first base is a slacker. So,
No,
I
no.
think I think everything's going to be fine
Yeah,
there.
it's basically because, number one, um, you know, probably the worst outfielder in the league this year was Kyle Schwarber. So they want Schwarber to be the full-time DH.
Right.
So they also want Bryce Harper to, look, you never know where injuries are going to happen, but there's a little bit less of an injury chance at first base as compared to the outfield.
Right.
You're not crashing into walls, you're not using all the torque when you're making a throw from
Flat
like,
out
the
sprint.
outfield.
Right. Right.
Right. So, the idea is to, extend his career and, he actually he rated out as playing like, an above average first base. So, and he'll only get better the more he works at it. So,
Practice makes perfect.
so
Yeah.
that's where he's going to be. The
All right.
main the
Go ahead.
main the main other thing with the Phillies is, I mean, I think it's pretty unlikely that Aaron Nola will be back. I mean, I think they will try to re-sign him, but some other teams will press hard as well. There's some talk that the Braves are going to try to sign him, which, on one hand, it would be kind of disappointing to see him go to the arch enemy, but at the same time, I
Happens
mean,
all
look,
the time.
I just sort of feel like it's good to see he pitched in the playoffs. You got to let him go. I mean, the guy just gives up way too many home runs, and he's on the opposite side of 30. And you know how pitchers get the older they get. Like, what do you want to
It's
do? You want to
it's
give him, you want to give him 200 million from like age like whatever 32 to 37. That's crazy.
I mean, you don't think he's going to be like Greg Maddux and pitch until he's like 70 and be great?
No,
Okay. All right.
no. I just think he's, like, look, he's a
That was a
good.
rhetorical question, of
I know,
course.
I know. He's a good pitcher. He's not a great pitcher, you know.
Okay.
And to be honest with you, the main reason why he's a good pitcher isn't because of actually pitching well.
Yeah, it's because of
It's
the lineup.
it's because he's available.
Right.
He doesn't get injured and he makes every start every year.
Yeah.
And that's why he's good because he eats innings.
Yeah. I would I
You know
would
what I
say
mean?
he's an above average pitcher. That's what I would say.
Yeah, he's above average, but
You have
but
just
now
the Grand Schwabini has grown tired of Aaron
I
Nola.
have grown
I
tired of
think
Aaron
that's what it
Nola.
is. Yeah.
Very tired of Aaron Nola.
Yeah. Can't even say his name right. All right. Look, I'm tired of all this. We got to get back to football here.
Let's
This
bring it back to the Eagles.
Let's do that. This is a huge matchup this week. I don't think we're going to realize how big it is until later in the year, even though we already know that it's pretty big. But the Eagles were on a bye, and of course, the rematch with the Chiefs is on deck. I'll tell you what, the Chiefs this year have been struggling to score. Obviously, no team is going to play at a high level every single year, every single game. But what are your feelings about this? First of all, how are the Eagles doing on the injury front? Because a couple of them are banged up. They had the bye week to kind of rest themselves. Where are you there, Schwaber? And then let's talk about the game.
Well, I think Bradley Roby, the nickel corner, is going to be back. I think that will help the defense. N'Kobe Dean is on the injured list again. So he's probably he might even be out for the year for all we know. It's like a
Right.
Liz Frank sprain.
I think they brought in a linebacker, Barr. I heard a report that they were talking to a guy named Barr or something
Did
Adam Schefter reported they're getting ready to sign him.
that happen today?
Yeah, I think it happened like literally within the last half hour, Schwaber, while you were staring.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay. Let's see. I'm gonna look it up here.
got to stay on top of
Um,
it. Going to be the Philly guy. Got to stay on top of it.
well, I don't see anything here.
I love a
Oh,
parade.
no. It says report Vikings plan to sign Anthony Barr. So
Oh,
you were looking at a Vikings thing.
no, that was that. No, I had heard the report that.
It
There
says
you go.
they hosted linebacker Anthony Barr.
There you go. Okay,
Yeah, they
so
hosted him.
there
So,
was a report that
and that
there
was
was a report the Eagles were going to sign him, but obviously that was erroneous.
well, who knows? I mean, that was an hour ago, and now Vikings plan to sign him was 30 minutes ago.
Okay, so
So,
let's talk about the state of
we'll
the
see.
Eagles defense, the state of their injuries, and then let's talk about the game.
Well, I mean, I guess, I mean, we sort of have to watch the game to see. I mean, like, apparently Jalen Hurts should be fine again after having 2 weeks off, but
Yeah, I think
we'll
he's
we'll
gonna
s-
be just
we'll
fine.
see. I mean,
Yeah,
he's playing great anyway, so who really cares?
yeah.
Um, and really it was Bradley Roby, the nickel corner. You got N'Kobe Dean. I think everybody else is healthy.
All right.
Yeah.
What are you looking for in this game? The Chiefs had them figured out in the Super Bowl. What do you think?
Um, well, I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't say they had him figured out in the Super Bowl. That's
Well, they
only
won. I mean,
that's
they won.
only that's only a response to saying they won. I mean, it's basically like saying, like, like yesterday the Lions beat the Chargers 41-38. That's like saying that, the Lions had the Chargers figured out.
Yeah,
It was the team that's had the ball last scored last.
yeah. Well,
You know
okay,
what I mean?
okay.
That's all it
They
was.
won, but they
Um, right. So, I don't know. I mean, who knows who's going to win this game?
this is a tough one. That's why I'm playing coy here because this is not the kind of game you can actually get in front
Oh,
of.
wait, we got it.
Both
We got a comment from Steve here.
uh
And
27-4 after a bye week loss for the Eagles. That's
yeah, and so, hey, Steve, I'm going to get you here. I'm going to get you here. Guess what? Eagles under Sirianni 2-0 after the bye week. That's better. 100% wins.
2-0. 2-0.
100%
Well,
wins.
see,
No, actually, though,
I don't
isn't
put a
this
lot of stock in those kinds of
no,
things because at 24-4 or whatever, I mean, you're talking over many years,
right?
you know.
And really,
So,
does it matter? Does it
yes.
matter? Does it matter that, like, Reed won like 14 weeks after the bye with Donovan McNabb? Does that apply to this game?
No, no, no.
Not really. Not
I still
really.
need to pull out my Donovan McNabb Washington Redskins jersey to that.
But anyway, interesting fact though. I sent you a text.
Yeah.
How about the fact that Sirianni had reached out to Reed for some advice on how to handle the bye week, and um, apparently 1-0 versus the Eagles. So that means 100% too. So what
Yeah.
gives here? You've got Sirianni 100% after the bye, Reed 100% against the Eagles. What do you think gives here?
Well, that's the whole point of this discussion. Who's going to win? They're either going to win or they're going to lose. This is tough because both teams are coming off a bye week. Both teams have had an opportunity not only to heal some injuries or some nagging aches and pains, but also to game plan for each other like crazy, which both of these guys do. I'm really looking for the Eagles to control the tempo of this game because Mahomes had made a comment the last time that, they lost to Denver. All right. So it's like he makes a comment, we're going to get better. Do you think they're going to get better? Yeah, I do think they're going to get better. Just waiting for that Chiefs offense to kind of start firing on all cylinders. So if there's a game, in my opinion, where the Eagles actually have to establish what up until this point is what I would consider by the eye test a non-existent run game, not in a bad sense, but just from the fact that, they pass to win. That's what they do. This is that game where they're going to have to get down in the trenches and keep Mahomes off the field. A quick strike just puts the ball right back into his hand. So rather than seeing A.J. Brown streaking up the seam, for a 60-yard catch and Devontae Smith down the sidelines, Goddard is out. So, but, I think what you want to do is you want to play that classic old, dare I say, Andy Reid dink and dunk offense to try to take some time off the clock. This game, for the Eagles to win, in my opinion, this needs to be a low-scoring game. What say you, Schwaber?
I don't know. I don't know. It's hard to say. I mean, in the Super Bowl, that's actually exactly what they did. I mean, they controlled the clock, and the Chiefs were able to win the game by way of a turnover. And they were able to win with keeping Patrick Mahomes to like 150 yards passing.
Right.
So they kind of did that in the Super Bowl. My feeling is that it's really going to come down to turnovers. If the Eagles don't turn the ball over, they win. If they do turn the ball over, they lose. Now, I know it's like kind of like a simple thing to say, but the Kansas City defense is good, and I think that's the kind of the X factor in this game. The Eagles defense is decent. It's not great. Particularly their pass defense hasn't been very good. But we'll see about that, once we get our nickel corner back. But, and now, Byard's now had 2 weeks plus a bye week, so he's got 4 weeks to kind of learn the system.
Right.
So we'll see. I'm looking for them to improve as the season goes along. I don't know that it's necessarily going to happen against Kansas City and Pat Mahomes, but we'll see. I mean, look, I kind of had marked this down as a Chiefs win. I would say, just being honest about it, I still predict that to be the case.
Well, it's in Kansas City, right?
Yeah, but I don't really look at that as anything terrible.
No.
I still really kind of look at it as I truly do believe that these are the two teams that are going to play a rematch in the Super Bowl. And to be honest, I probably rather go in having lost this game than having won this game.
Yeah, we've talked about that.
Yeah.
I understand where you're coming from there. I'm not so sure. I think in the NFC, the clear favorite is the Eagles. I am not convinced that the Chiefs are the clear favorite in the AFC right now. I think the Chiefs they're not having a Chiefs-like year. Now, of course, they do have the talent and the coaching and the ability to, by the end of the year, completely turn that around. It's not like they're having a horrible year, but it's just they don't look like the Chiefs.
Yeah, and that's what I think is that I think that Mahomes and Andy Reid are going to find their way to be the best in the AFC at the end of the year. It's not to say that, you couldn't have, another team like the Bills or the Ravens or the Bengals go on a run or something. You know what I mean?
The Bills probably not, but maybe the Ravens this year, maybe the Bengals, even though they just lost.
Maybe Miami. I don't know.
Yeah.
But
that's the thing about the AFC is that there are a couple teams. There's probably 3 or 4 teams in the AFC on top of Kansas City that if they get really hot, they can turn it on. I think that the only team in the NFC that has a fighting chance, I think there are 2 teams that have a fighting chance. One is the Lions, just because they play old school. They win games. And the other happens to be Dallas, who is a Jekyll and Hyde team right now. When the team sucks, like New York did. They come out and they spank them. When they play on the road or they play against somebody else, their defense, who's really good, seems to disappear, and and
Yeah.
Dak makes mistakes. And of course, Steve does bring up San Francisco, and that's the
Yeah.
other one. So,
Yeah. I mean, I mean, look, there's 4 good teams in the NFC. That's for sure.
yeah,
Um, and really, I do think it all comes down to um, home field advantage. If that home field advantage is an advantage for you, which for the Eagles it is,
right.
because what it comes down to is, let's say for example, maybe you think Dallas is going to be the biggest obstacle. Okay, so maybe Dallas is the biggest obstacle, but because you win the division and you get the 1 seed, if you do, right, then, maybe the Lions knock off Dallas, so you don't have to worry about Dallas. Or
Awesome.
maybe San Francisco beats Dallas, so you don't
I
have to
love
worry
this
about
comment.
Dallas.
Wild card is Minnesota. I
Yeah.
mean, look, I know everybody's really high on Josh Dobbs right now because he seems to pull miracles out of his ass. But if you think for 1 second that Josh Dobbs is going to be in the playoff conversation by the end of this year as the Minnesota Vikings quarterback, you're nuts.
Hey,
And we'll
by the
discuss
way,
that in the next show.
by the
Hockey,
way, just a side take for you, Chris, which
please.
I
Yeah.
think you're going to find this to be possibly hilarious.
Entertaining.
Okay.
Yep.
Do you know who I think is the next Kirk Cousins?
Sam Howell.
Sam Howell.
Why
He
do
is
I
going to
know
be
you
the
were gonna say
next Kirk Cousins. You see him, he put up like 350 and 3
yeah,
touchdowns and no
yeah.
interceptions. He's going to be the guy whose teams never win, who throws for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns every week. He's going to be a great fantasy quarterback. After like 4 years, the Redskins, or excuse me, Commanders, are going to be sick of him, and they're going to send him to Minnesota, and he's going to be the next Kirk Cousins.
There you go. I don't know. I don't know about that. The one thing about Kirk Cousins that you look, Kirk Cousins is an unlucky guy. He has played the 2 teams he's played on have been, the Redskins had their issues, period, as an organization, and they also had horrible defenses while he was putting up record numbers for a Redskins quarterback who never won the Super Bowl. And then he goes to Minnesota and he continues to put up record numbers. He's in the conversation of one of the top 20 quarterbacks of all time. And with his statistics, I don't say Kirk Cousins isn't the problem on the teams he goes to. The problem is he's always coming from behind. The defenses on those teams give up so many points. So you could actually say that, believe it or not, about Drew Brees for most of his career. He was fantastic. Now he has an MVP and a Super Bowl ring underneath his belt. So now all of a sudden he's in the conversation as one of the greatest of all time. But he only won 1 Super Bowl. And for many, many of those years, first of all,
Mhm.
when he was in San Diego a few years and in New Orleans, he had no defense. So he had to throw the ball like that.
Well,
So
yeah. I mean,
it's
look,
a fine line,
football.
man.
Well,
I'm a
yeah. I
Cousins
mean,
defender, okay? Because
yeah.
I thought the Redskins at the time should have kept him.
Are you a Justin Herbert defender? Because now he looks like another,
Kirk Cousins.
great fantasy quarterback. It's pretty clear he's a great quarterback, but his team stinks and they never win.
I have Herbert on my fantasy team, and I don't comment on players on my roster. Steve says Minnesota's getting Jefferson back. You laugh, but watch out. All right.
So should the
Good Lord.
Steelers have kept Dobbs?
Do you want to be on this show or the next show,
Should
DeFletch?
the
I mean, come
Steelers
on.
have kept Dobbs?
Yeah, yeah. So this is a Philly show. Let's and it's going to be a quick show tonight because really since the Eagles didn't play, we're looking forward to this game and we'll have a lot to break down. So what's your prediction for this game, Schwaber? How are you feeling about it?
My prediction is the
I know you
Eagles.
were talking about a loss,
The Eagles will lose this game 27-24.
I think the Eagles are going to win this game.
Yeah.
I think they have a bone to pick. I think they're flying a little higher than the Chiefs right now. I think the Chiefs, believe it or not, I think this Travis Kelce, Taylor Swift thing is a bunch of media garbage. But I think it gets in the way, and I think it's honestly it's the dumbest thing I've ever watched. I don't care whether or not Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce are dating. I really I don't care, and I don't understand. Well, I guess I do understand the media hype, but it's all about eyeballs and
If
money.
if
But I think Taylor Swift is finally going to be the distraction that brings the Chiefs down.
if you don't believe in Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce, then you, my friend, don't believe in love.
There you go. And I'm not going to put that comment.
No,
Steve's challenging us.
inappropriate,
Yeah, yeah.
inappropriate. Get your head out of the gutter, Steve.
Good Lord, hockey
My
Chiefs.
God,
You're not true to your religion, hockey. Never.
despicable.
Yeah, I think the Eagles are. I think that, like I said earlier in the broadcast, this is a game where the Eagles need to keep it low scoring, because I think the Chiefs, they just want to go. They're ready to break out here and score some points. And if the Eagles, I know this may be the formula that may or may not, it didn't work in the Super Bowl, but that was a long time ago too. That was last year. I think the Eagles come out in this game. I think they come out in this game ready to play, and I think they run the ball down their throat. Because if I'm the Chiefs, if I'm Andy Reid, I'm game planning to try to take AJ Brown out of the game. I'm taking Devontae Smith out of the game. And if I'm the Eagles, I'm game planning to surprise you and say, well, we weren't planning on using those guys to win any day. Anyway, this is the DeAndre Swift game. This is his time to shine.
Swift.
17-14 Eagles.
The real Swift.
Take the under.
You say DeAndre Swift, not Taylor Swift.
There you go. I say the Swift. The Swift that can ball.
That's a little dirty.
This is a horrible show.
Well, I've been very good. You've been mediocre.
Right. Well, I mean, you are how you feel, and I'm feeling pretty mediocre today.
That's right. Now, Steve says go Flyers. I don't think he tuned in early in the show when we talked. The Flyers at 7-7-1.
Yeah.
Treading water.
Yep.
Treading water.
Which is much better than what we would have expected. So next week, hopefully we will have Cash on to do a little Sixers. He's nice. Very excited about the Sixers season, and we will be reporting on the Eagles, hopefully victory in Kansas City.
Do we have Cash locked in for next week? Did he sign his contract?
He has not signed his contract yet, but I should be speaking with him within the next 24 to 48 hours to see how his other boss feels about his dishwashing work schedule.
All right. Well, hey, some of the best sports minds have started out as dishwashers.
Yes, and grocery store clerks. All right. Hey, as always, wrapping it up, want to thank you for watching the Sports Porch Philadelphia on Facebook, on YouTube, on X, on LinkedIn, all over the world. And we're going to drop the podcast right after this show. Would love for you to subscribe and leave us a review. The Sports Porch Philadelphia on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere you get your podcasts. And you can always visit us at theporcheslive.com, theporcheslive.com.
Theporcheslive.com. Click on the Philadelphia tab. It's the only tab that matters. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being you.
Go Birds.